Hey crafty family, it's me, and today we are going to make some fun things with ribbon sliders. So we're going to make some cute little embellishment thingies. That's what we're going to call them, embellishment thingies. So what you're going to need is your large ribbon sliders, which I think these are 22 millimeter, I want to say. Yeah, 22 millimeter. So that's an inch and an inch and 2/16 or 1/8. Never mind, I can't measure, so 1/8, an inch and 1/8. I said an inch and 2/16. McFly. Oh my god. Anyway, so yeah, 22 millimeter. Let's just stick with that. And you're going to need some small graphics. I've got this, which is not very small graphics. It's a piece of, yeah, wrapping paper. And I could use like the little flower out of here, or, you know, little heart or something. I don't know. I could use that. I'm probably going to use these little graphics up here, which I printed out, and then I didn't want to waste the paper, so I printed out some other vintage graphics that I'm going to be using in an upcoming thingamabobber, an upcoming journal, and a current journal that I'm working on probably. But right now I'm going to cut out the little vintage animals because that's what I'm going to use to make some cute little embellishments, because there is a couple of little poodles in here. Can you see how cute this little guy here and this little girl here? How cute! So what you're going to want to do is make yourself a template. And these ribbon sliders are 22 millimeters, which is an inch and 1/8, I guess. And so you're going to, it's an odd size. You're not going to find a punch that's going to match it. So the inside is smaller than 22 millimeters. So the inside is like a little bit more than 3/4 of an inch. So what you're going to have to do is, here, I'll show you on here. Flip it over or sit it like this, however you want to do it. Doesn't matter. And then take your pen or pencil, and it's going to be hard to do because the inside has those little bumps, you know. Can you hear it? So you're not going to get a smooth line, so you're just going to have to figure it out. But make yourself some sort of a template using this method somehow, and then, you know, kind of straighten it out for yourself, and then cut a little bit on the inside of that line to get your template, because the template's going to be a little smaller than that, you'll see. Well, about the same size actually, not very much smaller than that. So yeah, so that's how you make a template, and it's not going to be perfect, but it'll work. Just get it as best as you can. If you have to do it a couple of times, then do it a couple of times. But that's going to be my 22 millimeter ribbon slider. I'm going to do this so I don't lose it. Template. 22 millimeter ribbon slider template. This way I don't lose it and I don't go, oh, this is a scrap of some sort, and throw it away, which I would typically do. So then you're going to find a graphic or make a graphic, or I usually put a graphic in Word and then shrink it down, or whatever you got to do. And you're going to want it to cover pretty much the whole thing. I want to actually do this little poodle right here because I'm only going to show you how to do one, so it doesn't take 6 years. You're just going to put your template over top of your graphic, and then obviously you're going to trace the template. You're going to trace your template, and then you're going to use little scissors, which I think I left my little scissors over at my desk on the other side of the room. So for now, I usually cut it out like that. So there it is with the circle around it, and now we're going to cut it out. You're going to do just the best you can. You don't have to like overly freak out. And you probably should have done it, should do it with pencil and not like me who did it with a pen. But I'm going to try to cut off all the pens, so just carefully without cutting too much out. Because if you do it with a pencil, then you can go back and erase all your lines. But I'm a dingbat, so. And that was the first thing I had in front of me was a pen. And I'm too lazy to reach, you know, 3 more inches to get a pencil. You know how it is. Good enough. So there's our little poodle girl. Let's make sure she fits in the ribbon slider before we move any further. That's definitely a must. Make sure it fits perfectly. It's not fitting perfectly. I must not have cut enough. So now I'm going to go around and just clean it up a little bit and cut just a little bit, you know, literally hairs at a time. You don't want to overcut because then you'll end up with it not, you know, being way too small. And that's one thing we don't want. Let's make sure that that did it. It fits a little snug. We don't want it fitting too snug because we're going to put embossing powder on it, which is going to leak over the sides ever so slightly. So we'd rather, you know, we don't want it so small that it's not going to give us any leeway whatsoever. So I'm just going to continue to cut tiny little slivers. I would have done better if I had my other scissors, because these scissors like to cut off way too much. Okay, that's better. I found that this thing cleans my rubber mats off because this mat here is the same kind of texture as the craft mat, and I had this out because I had it on my lap earlier when I was working on something. So I just left it out. So once you have it and you got it to fit in there like so, now we're going to take it out. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to move all this crap to the side. I'm going to power up, make sure everything's powered on so my heat gun works. And then I'm going to take some embossing glue. And here's the bottle that goes with the pad, and usually you'd glue the pad. Well, that pad, I glue it and then the damn thing gets really gross and it dries up fast. I don't understand the point. So I'm not going to use that. And actually I need to find my, there it is. My embossing powder disappeared. So rather than do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the glue. I'm going to put it on a dot on here, rub it around with my finger, and then put it in to the embossing powder. And I'm not going to use the spoon. I'm just going to dip it in and then pull it out. And usually what I use is these sweet tweezers that have this little spoon type of thing on one end and the tweezers on the other. For when I want to get it out, I usually use the spoon part because it helps. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put a dot of the glue on, and then I'm going to just quickly, because if it's an inkjet, you want to be careful because I didn't seal this and I should have, and I dropped it, of course. And since I didn't seal it, it could, what do you call it? So now I'm going to lay it in the embossing powder. You guys know how to do this part. We've done it before. If you don't know how, you should look up how to emboss. Because that'll probably give you a better video than I'm going to give you, because I'm not going to give you lessons. But that's the only thing we're going to need this for. It's just the initial time. Because after that, we are going, the heat gun and the embossing powder that's on it is going to do the job. So now I'm going to lift it up, tap off the excess off the back, wipe it off with my finger. I hope you could see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to use the little thing here to make sure I hold it down, and I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to heat up my glue gun. I'm going to heat this up to the embossing powder melts, and then I'm going to put it right back into the embossing powder. That the melted embossing powder that's on there will then stick to new embossing powder, and it's like instead of re-inking it, that kind of automatically sticks, and that's what you do. You go back and forth when it's heated into there, pick up more embossing powder, heat it, stick it back in there, pick up more embossing powder. That's kind of how we do it. So I'm going to do it, and I kind of work fast just so that I don't, you know, screw up my little system. Okay, so that was the first layer, and here comes the second layer. And we're going to do this probably a good 4 times until it's built up a nice dome on it, so it looks pretty. And sometimes my little spoon thing gets covered in embossing powder and I have to melt it and wipe it off. But I try to keep it in this little spoon because it kind of keeps it in place, and it's also easy for me to pick it up and flip it into there. So that's why I do that. I heated this up so much that it got embossing powder all over it and stuck to it. Embossing is a very, very messy job, so just keep that in mind, that you're going to want to use it on some sort of good mat that's not going to blow everything all over. It's definitely a messy job for shizzle, because I seem to make a giant mess every time I emboss anything. That's kind of just the nature of the beast. You got to be prepared for that. Okay. Again, I'm going to stick it back in my little spoon. It's getting harder to fit because a little bit of the embossing powder kind of starts to get around the outside edge, which is why I said you don't want it to fit into the ribbon slider too tightly, because the outside edge gets a little bit of embossing powder, which makes it a little bit wider. Okay. I'm going to heat this up again. This time I'm going to do it on low, so it doesn't melt so fast with so much force to blow the melted powder liquid, well, it turns to a liquid, all over the place. I just want it to kind of melt in place, because if it's too high, the embossing powder starts to melt and go like spread. Like the melted embossing powder will spread if your heat gun's on too high. Get back here. Trying to grab it only by the edges. I probably only need to do it one more time. I want to get a nice coating on it. I do have to keep wiping this off. And don't worry if you get embossing powder on your metal utensil. You could just heat it up, and when it's melted, just wipe it off and it'll come right off. And yes, I did paint my nails. They kind of got screwed up when I went to bed. I hate that. You get like little hair patterns in from putting your hand underneath of your hair. And I had done it like 6 hours prior, but it still did that. I don't know why. Bizarre. This heat gun for just one reason, and that's because it's kind of hard to shut off. See, I just melted all the stuff off of my little thing, so now there's no built up embossing powder. This thing is a pain in the ass because in the middle is the off button, and then up here is low and down here is high, and it's hard to get it back into the middle. I wish it would have just been one of those like what's on my soldering iron, one of these suckers on the front of it, just an off and an on button would have been way better to make, you know, high and low or whatever. Would have just been way better, in my opinion. Okay, so we're going to do one more heat and then we're done. One more heat. Come on, get off of there. And I was just looking at it. I was kind of had my head tilted to the side, and I was looking at it as I was blowing it to make sure that it was pretty smooth along the top. Like for this one, I got a nice smooth finish, but for this one, it has a little indent in it where the embossing powder kind of, I was using the heat gun too high, and that's what'll happen. It leaves like a little divot in the, I don't know if you could see that, in the, I'm probably holding it too close. It leaves a divot in the embossing powder. So you want to use it on low once you get past like the first or second dipping, where it's going to start noticeably building up the embossing powder. And if you use a nice non-stick mat, which I did, you won't have any problem with it sticking to your mat or anything. So here we go. I'll pick it up and show you. It's still a bit warm. I wonder if I can get it zoomed in. I don't know if it zooms in that close. But isn't it cute? I hope it's zoomed in and not all fuzzy. Anyway, that should be dry. Yep, it's dry. Now what I'm going to do is close this up before I make a mess out of it. You always want to not make sure you don't hit your heat gun over this because it'll just go everywhere. And then you want to make sure you close it as soon as you're done using it. And I'm going to move this out of the way. And I will fast forward me cleaning up this mess. Okay, now we're cooking. Okay, now what you want to do is put your little dude and make sure it still fits inside of the ribbon slider well. If not, if you get a lot of the embossing powder around the outside, for any reason, you could take a little bit of sandpaper to sand it away. You could take scissors if you're real careful. But sandpaper would probably be the best way. And you don't have to do much. Just a what do you call it? A nail file would be just fine. And that's only if you made a real sloppy mess and it won't fit into your ribbon slider because of it. But now that we've got that all taken care of, now we're going to take a little bit of hot glue and we're going to put it on the ribbon slider. And see, that's the only point of contact this has to stick, is that little silver And these are plastic, so these little silver plastic things there. If it was metal, I would say use Fabri-Tac or E6000, but because it's plastic, it'll be fine, and we'll glue it on there. But we're also going to secure it from the back. I'll show you that in a second. So what we're going to do is, hopefully this is heated up. I'm going to take a bead of hot glue and put it right there, and then quickly lay this in and push it down evenly on both sides so it doesn't, like, because it'll wobble because of the fact that there's just the strip in the center. So you want to make sure it goes in nice and even. And once you get that done, it looks like that. That's basically the finished product right there. How adorable. But we're going to secure this up back here a little better. And we're going to let that glue dry for just a second. The hot glue. So I'll show you all three of them. Now, some of these, this one's not quite as up as these ones. Like, these ones are a little bit coming, like, further up level with the surface of the thing, and this one's a little bit not as much. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put this on a piece of chipboard. I have lightweight chipboard that I would normally cut my photo out of and then make another templated piece and glue a piece of chipboard to it. So you could do that as well. So you would just take your little graphic, let's say I cut that out, and then you'd get a piece of chipboard, which I had a piece, here it is. Just underneath of everything. And then you would do it, you know, you'd take your template and cut out your little, let's say the little fox, like that. And then you would take your template and cut out a little piece here. And then you would cut out your fox, cut out your little round piece, glue them together, then do the embossing, then put it in. And it would lift it up just enough so that it was like this, where it was more popping up over the ring, the ribbon slider, whereas this one's sitting a little more flush in there, which is fine, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. It doesn't, I mean, visibly they both look great. You don't really know the difference, but that's an option. That's what I did on these two, so I thought I'd mention it. Okay, so now that that's dry, now I'm going to take a piece of cardstock. Like, this is, you know, cardstock. It's not copy paper. And I'm going to cut myself out an itty bitty little strip of paper. And that's going to be too big. But what I'm going to do is, like we did on the, some embellishment I made, I can't remember, where I pushed it around the side. And of course you got hot glue on there, and if it's spilled over, you're going to have to go over that as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to push this in and kind of form it around the back. And now I'm going to cut off some of the excess here because I got too much. So that you've got this little dude, so that the two ends of the paper fit on the paper from the back and the paper on this side. Okay, so then we're going to take some Aleene's tacky glue, and we're going to put some glue on this piece here. And this is just your added security, because like I said, it's only held on by a little metal, well, it's not metal, plastic strip going across it. That's the only thing holding your graphic on, your embellishment part. So I'm going to do this, and it might be, if you get excess glue, just wipe it on your pants. But it just gives it a little added strength so that over time it's not going to fall out. So that's all you got to do, see? And I did that on both of these as well. A little just added bracket, kind of. And that's it. And then you've got your little cute little embellishment. So I hope you liked this. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you'll give it a try. And don't forget to get these ribbon sliders. Go to Lori's Lovely Paper Crafts, is it? Oh God, I can't remember. Sorry, Lori. My brain just had like a meltdown. The link will be in the description, but she's got these ribbon sliders so cheap that you can't afford not to get some. Literally, they are so cheap, and they're awesome, and they're great. you know, if you have flat back pearls, she has the really small ones, which will work with her pearls. She's got 10mm pearls and the smallest of her ribbon sliders, because she's got 3 different sizes. She's got small, medium, or large. These are the large ones. And then she's got medium ones, and her smallest ones are the 10mm that will work with the 10mm pearls. So you can get some of her pearls, get some of the small ones, and then get some of the large ones and make little embellishments with them. You could put your kids' photos in these and stick a magnet on the back, and I mean, you could do anything. So definitely give these a try. They're a lot of fun. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Make sure you do what you love and love what you do, and be nice to people. Love you guys. Bye.